It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause, and MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hey everyone, Laszlo Montgomery here. Thanks for tuning in to the China History Podcast. Today, we're going to explore another in a long line of topics that throughout the years has been requested by so many listeners on every continent. And that is the life of Jin Yong and the Wuxia genre of Chinese fiction, of which he was, I feel safe in saying this, the brightest star in that constellation of great writers. Though best known by his pen name, Jin Yong, he was born Jia Liangyong on March 10, 1924 in Haining, not far from the rich, literary and scholarly cities of Hangzhou and Shaoxing. He was descended from a family of celebrated scholars who went all the way back to the Ming Dynasty. His father was a scholar and intellectual who later got caught up in one of Mao's early purges and was labeled a counter-revolutionary and executed in the early 1950s, and like many others, was later exonerated of all wrongdoing during the Deng era. In the Western press, Jia Liangyong, or Jin Yong, was known as Louis Cha, founder of the Ming Bao newspaper, who also wrote 15 novels between 1955 and 1972. Over 100 million Jin Yong books have been sold, and that number doesn't include the pirated versions of his work that spread out all over the world and are probably 2 to 3 times that number, if not greater. And with me today to discuss the life and writings of Jin Yong, I am honored to have author Alice Poon. Alice is a longtime friend of the CHP and has written 2 historical novels, The Green Phoenix and Tales of Ming Courtesans, and most recently 2 books in the Chinese fantasy genre, The Heavenly Sword, and fresh off the presses at Earnshaw Books, The Earthly Blaze. Alice grew up in Hong Kong on a steady diet of Jin Yong novels, and I asked her if she wouldn't mind coming on to the CHP to assist me in presenting the life and work of Jin Yong to all of you. So all the way from the Canadian province of British Columbia, Alice Poon, welcome to the China History Podcast.
Thank you so much, Laszlo. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
You know, lately, whenever I get a request for this topic of Jin Yong, I always make a mental note to reach out to you when the time comes, and maybe I'll get lucky and you'll come on the show and help me introduce this celebrated Chinese cultural icon as well as the wuxia genre. So let's get right down on it. Before we look at Jin Yong and the greater wuxia genre of writing, can you give us a brief outline of his life and the major milestones?
Okay, sure. Jin Yong is a household name in Chinese communities, and he is lauded as the grandmaster of wuxia fiction, and very often he is referred to as China's Tolkien. He was inspired early by all the great Ming and Qing era novels, and he was also a voracious reader of Chinese history. His favorite history tome was the Jiji Tongjian, or Comprehensive Mirror in Aid of Governance, which was written by Sima Guang of the Song Dynasty, which chronicles history from 400 903 BC to 959 AD. He began his career in 1947 at the age of 23, working at the newspaper Dagongbao in Shanghai. In 1948, he moved to Hong Kong to continue working at Dagongbao's Hong Kong office. After the communist victory in 1949, he remained in Hong Kong and became writer of the Dagongbao's evening edition. During this time, he met Liang Yusheng, who is a fellow Wuxia lover and writer. And it was Liang who convinced Jin Yong to give it a go at writing Wuxia literature. This led to the 1955 publication of The Book and the Sword, his first Wuxia novel. In Mandarin, it's Shu Jian En Chou Lu. It came out like all those 20th century wuxia novels as serials in newspapers. In 1957, he left journalism and went into the movie business for a short stint. And then in 1959, he co-founded the Ming Pao, which is a daily newspaper in Hong Kong, with his classmate Shen Baoxin. He wrote his last wuxia novel in 1972, and that was The Deer and the Cauldron. And then he spent his remaining years editing past works and writing. In the 1970s, he entered politics and became a member of the Basic Law Drafting Committee, but he resigned in protest after the June 4 incident in 1989. Then on October 30th, 2018, he passed away in a Happy Valley hospital at the age of 94. One thing I really admire about this iconic figure is his tireless pursuit of knowledge, even in his golden years. In 2004, he received an honorary doctorate from the University of Cambridge. Then he decided to actually earn a doctorate through taking university courses. In 2010, at the age of 86, he received his PhD in Oriental Studies from the same university. The thesis he wrote for the degree was on imperial succession in the early Tang dynasty. And that's a run-through of his life.
Yeah, quite a life. You know, when I used to live in Hong Kong back in the 1990s, I only knew him as Louis Cha, the Ming Pao founder and, someone who was often in the news. And I had no idea yet about his renown as a writer. Can you talk about the term xia or wuxia and how these wuxia became such popular characters in Chinese fiction? Can you begin with their place in ancient Chinese history, and then for the benefit of those who aren't familiar with the genre, we can go right into what a wuxia novel is and take as long as you'd like to enlighten us.
Okay, let's take a look at the ancient history first. I'll start with the term wuxia. Wuxia is made up of two Chinese characters. The character wu actually means martial power or something to do with the art of attack and defense. The word sha in general refers to heroes or vigilantes who have 8 qualities ascribed to them. And those qualities are altruism, justice, individualism, loyalty, courage, truthfulness, disregard for wealth, and desire for glory. Actually, some of these qualities tally with the Confucian values ascribed to a noble character called Junji, and those values are loyalty, righteousness, benevolence, and courage. The Code of Sha also emphasizes gratitude, the importance of gratitude, and bringing villains to justice. European knights all come from the aristocracy, but the Chinese Sha can come from commoner or nobility background. The history of the Chinese Sha goes back a long, long way. It first arose from the Zhou dynasty vassal class of men who were known for their lifelong loyalty to their feudal lords. When their lords were defeated in battles, they evolved into the wandering knights errant, or Wuxia. They were suppressed during the Qin and driven underground. They were also not welcome in the early Han Dynasty, which carried on many of the laws and traditions established in the Qin. Some proto-Wuxia characters could be found in writings from the Warring States and the Han era. One prominent story from that period is the one where Jin Ke, the political assassin from the state of Yan, made a failed assassination attempt on the first Qin emperor. And that story and other assassin stories were included in the biographies of assassins, which form a part of records of the Grand Historian compiled by Sima Qian. During the Sui dynasty, the Shaolin monk emerged as a new type of wuxia, adopting many of the same qualities and principles as other wandering knights errant. But the genre didn't take off until the Tang dynasty. During the Tang dynasty, the most popular genre of fiction written in classical Chinese was called legendary tales, 传奇小说. Such legendary tales were structured as short stories, and they were grouped under four main categories: wuxia, romance, historical, and supernatural. Sometime during the Song dynasty, all these numerous Tang legendary tales were compiled into one mammoth anthology consisting of 500 volumes, and that is called Taiping Guangji, Extensive Records of the Taiping Reign, and edited by the Song scholar Li Fang and others. Taiping Reign is the reign of the second Song emperor, Taizong. There are two most well-known wuxia legendary tales collected in the anthology. One is titled Legend of the Dragon Beard. This is widely considered the first wuxia short novel. The story tells how Dragon Beard, who is a very highly skilled martial artist, how he helps Li Shimin seize the throne and become the second Tang emperor, Tang Taizong. And the other well-known legendary tale is titled The Assassin Ni Yin Liang. There is a 2014 award-winning film adaptation of this story, directed by Taiwanese director Hu Shaoxian and starring Xu Qi. To digress a little bit, I have discovered one interesting thing about this tale, The Assassin Ni Yin Liang, and that is, in the novel, there is a depiction of the fantastical Qinggong skill. Qinggong is a special martial arts skill where the practitioner can literally lift himself up in midair, scale high walls, leap from treetop to treetop or rooftop to rooftop. That is called Qinggong in Chinese martial arts terms. The description in that story is very likely to have inspired all the Qinggong skills in later fiction. There is a passage that conveys that skill very vividly. The scene is one where the protagonist is trained in martial arts by a Taoist nun and her two girl disciples. And this is my own translation of the excerpt. Quote, "The two girl disciples, both aged about 10, were very pretty and smart, and often abstained from food. They were able to fly around the mountain crags, like monkeys leaping from tree to tree. The nun gave me a pill and an ultra-sharp sword about 2 feet long. I learned how to scale heights by chasing the two girls, and in time, I felt light as the wind. A year later, I could use my sword to strike down monkeys. Then tigers and leopards were my targets, and I would cut their heads and bring them home. After 3 years, I could fly and was capable of striking eagles in mid-air. Every strike hit home. Birds in flight were never aware of my looming sword." End of quote. Now, that's quite an amazing description, I think, about Qinggong. Now, in the Song and Yuan dynasty, wuxia fiction generally followed the Tang style, but the genre was mostly eclipsed by other genres of literature. When the novel Water Margin came out in the Ming Dynasty, it became wildly popular and eventually became one of the 4 great Chinese classical novels. Now, researchers generally agree that it was the first full-length wuxia novel and precursor of modern-era wuxia fiction. Jin Yong himself actually admitted that his early works were indeed influenced by Water Margin. In the Qing dynasty, there is a popular wuxia tome titled The Three Heroes and Five Gallants, Sansha Wu Yi, which tells the adventures of the bodyguards of the righteous magistrate Bao Jing, better known as Bao Gong, from the Song dynasty. And then in the Republic of China era, the most well-known wuxia and Sansha novelist was Huangzhi Lou, and that novel was written in the 1930s and later adapted into films. Xianxia is actually a subgenre of wuxia, and Xianxia involves immortal characters. Huangzhi Lou's peers include someone named Huang Dulu, and Wang Dulu has a popular work entitled the Crane Iron series. And one part of this series was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was adapted into a movie in 2000, directed by Ang Lee. And that movie became an international blockbuster. As for other modern-era wuxia novelists, it's widely accepted that Jin Yong is the grandmaster, and his peers include Liang Yusheng and Gu Long. Liang Yusheng wrote a total of 35 wuxia novels, which were all serialized in newspapers. His style of weaving Chinese history into his stories probably had an influence on Jin Yong. The most popular work was The Bride with White Hair, which is part 1 of his Tian Shan series. This was made popular by the 1993 movie adaptation starring Brigitte Lin and Leslie Cheung. Gu Long was in a class of his own, and his wuxia novels center on romance and mystery. The most popular series was the Chu Liu Xiang series, as people were obsessed with the various TV adaptations. So that's roughly how wuxia as a genre has evolved over the millennia. In summary, wuxia fiction is a genre of Chinese fiction that favors characters who are righteous, skilled in the martial arts and personal combat, sometimes even in military combat, and are always on the side of the downtrodden and the wronged. They always adhere to their own code of honor. And I think wuxia fiction is a little bit like the Robin Hood tales of British folklore.
Yeah, so many cultures the world over have similar genres involving the oppressed and the downtrodden being saved by knights in shining armor or someone who wears a cape and who comes down hard against villains and tyrants, always on the side of righteousness. So you've read them all and are duly qualified to perhaps give us a bit of an overview of Jin Yong's wuxia novels. And there's no need for a whole book report on each. I know some of them share a common ecosystem. And, well, which ones are connected to which? And are there any recurring major characters throughout many of Jin Yong's books?
Actually, I haven't read all of his novels. I have actually only read about 8 or 9, but have probably watched most of the TV and movie adaptations while growing up. Between the year 1955 and 1972, he wrote a total of 15 wuxia novels, some of which are in short form. Here's the list in date order. 1. The Book and the Sword. It's a story of rebellion set during the reign of the Qianlong Emperor. 2. Sword Stained with Royal Blood. It's a story of split loyalty set against the fall of the Ming Dynasty. 3. The Legend of the Condor Heroes. It's largely a coming-of-age story set in southern Song. 4. Fox Volant of the Snowy Mountain. It's a story of mystery set in the Qianlong Emperor's reign. 5. Return of the Condor Heroes. It's a story of forbidden love set in southern Song. 6. The Young Flying Fox. It's a picaresque story set in the Qianlong Emperor's reign. 7. Blade Dance of Two Lovers. It's a novelette. 8. The Heaven Sword and the Dragon Saber. And that's a story of betrayal and prejudices set at the end of the Yuan Dynasty. 9. The White Horse Neighs in the West Wind. And that's a novelette. 10. Demigods and Semidevils. It is a story of vengeance versus karmic fate set in the northern Song. 11. A Deadly Secret. It's a short novel. 12. Ode to Gallantry, another short novel. 13. The Smiling Proud Wanderer. It's a story of conflict between orthodoxy and cultism. 14. Sword of the Yu Maiden. That's another novelette. 15. And last, The Deer and the Cauldron. It's a satirical comedy set in the Kangxi Emperor's reign. One interesting tidbit is that at some point it was discovered that a lyrical couplet could be derived by linking the first Chinese word in the book titles of 14 of those novels. In Cantonese, the couplet reads, 飛雪連天射白鹿，笑書神俠倚碧鴛. My Mandarin is not good. I can't say that in Mandarin, sorry.
香港人啊.
And my English translation of the couplet is this. Under a sky brimming with snowflakes, a white deer gets arrowed. Smiling, I scribble about the mystic hero riding the blue water bird. And that couplet has quite a very beautiful imagery, don't you think?
Yeah, he was thinking ahead, that's for sure. How he took the first character of the first 14 books and joined them together to form this 7-character per line Dui Lian couplet.
Yes, yeah. Quite brilliant, huh? Now, I think I'll focus on describing the novels that share the same settings and where they are connected to each other. 3 of the novels, though not written consecutively, are interconnected, and they are Legend of the Condor Heroes, Return of the Condor Heroes, and The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. Together they form the Condor Heroes trilogy. The stories in these 3 novels span the tumultuous period during which the southern Song Empire was in deep conflict with the Jin, Liao, and Xisha empires. The Jin Empire was an empire of the Jurchens, the Liao was of the Khitans, and the Xisha was of the Tangut tribe. All of these empires, along with the Song, were eventually conquered by the Mongol tribe to form the Yuan dynasty. Now, Guo Jing and Huang Yong are the leading couple who appear in the first 2 novels. In Legend of the Condor Heroes, the antagonist Yan Kang is a Jurchen prince from the Jin Empire who schemes to invade the southern Song. He pursues a Han girl called Mu Nianqi. As their romance develops, she gives birth to their son and dies soon after. The leading couple in this novel, Guo Jing and Wang Yong, decides to adopt the baby boy because Guo Jing's father and Yan Kang's father used to be sworn brothers before both got murdered in a frame-up. Guo Jing and Huang Yong name the baby boy as Yan Guo and raise him as their own. Yang Guo then appears in Return of the Condor Heroes as the rebellious youngster who mistakes his foster family for enemies and who is involved in a forbidden romance with his martial arts master, Xiao Longnu. Also, Guo Jing and Huang Rong have a baby girl of their own, and she's named Guo Xiang, who grows up to be a brat, and she appears in Return of the Condor Heroes as Yang Guo's nemesis. After many mishaps and incidents, in the end, Guo Xiang inherits Yang Guo's personal weapon, which is the hefty iron sword. She then becomes a Taoist nun and goes on to found the Ermei clan of martial arts. In the Heaven Sword and the Dragon Saber, Yang Guo's hefty iron sword is split into two formidable weapons, the Heaven Sword and the Dragon Slaying Saber. That is how the title of the book came about. These weapons then become the object of mad pursuit for the entire martial arts world. As the story starts, the Heaven Sword is in the hands of the Ermei clan leader, a Taoist abbess who succeeds from Guo Xiang, the founder, while the dragon-slaying saber is seized by the golden-haired Lion King, a senior member of the Ming cult, and also godfather of the protagonist, Zhang Wuji. Then the story completely departs from the first two novels to revolve around the young Zhang Wuji and how he comes to lead the Ming cult to rise up against the Mongolian rulers. So that is how these three novels are tied to each other, and they form the Condor Heroes trilogy. Another case of connection is where the novel Demigods and Semi-Devils, which is set in northern Song, is deemed as the prequel to Legend of the Condor Heroes. One of the three protagonists in Demigods is named Qiao Feng, and at the start of the novel he is elected as the Beggars' clan chief. Thus, he became the predecessor to Hong Qigong, who appears in Legend of the Condor Heroes also as the Beggars' clan chief and one of the 5 great masters. Another protagonist in Demigods is Prince Duan of the Dali Kingdom, who turns out to be the ancestor of Monk Yideng. Monk Yideng is another of the 5 great masters in Legend of the Condor Heroes, who becomes ordained as a Buddhist monk after abdicating from the throne of the Dali Kingdom. So that's how those two novels are connected. In another instance, the Young Flying Fox is the prequel to Fox Volant of the Snowy Mountain. In Fox Volant of the Snowy Mountain, Miao Renfeng and Hu Yidao are best friends, and each possesses unrivaled martial arts skills. Then Hu Yidao gets slightly wounded in a duel with Miao Renfeng and dies shortly after, and Miao is accused of murder. Hu Yidao's son Hu Fei grows up and tries to unravel the truth about his father's death, while also attempting to solve a long-lasting vendetta between his ancestors and 3 other families, including the Miao Renfeng family. The story in The Young Flying Fox is more like a spin-off, and it's about the young Hu Fei's unhappy triangle love relationship with 2 young girls. The love stories run alongside his involvement in the anti-Qing movement and his discovery of Miao Renfeng's tragic past. So I think that's all I have on his works.
Okay, so now that we have the lay of the land as far as his writing went, what's your opinion? Which of his novels are the most popular, and are those your favorites?
I think a lot of Jin Yong fans would agree that the 3 novels in the Condor Heroes trilogy are by far the most popular. Their popularity is probably reflected in the high number of screen adaptations that have come out over the past decades. This trilogy is widely considered as Jin Yong's magnum opus and a time-tested classic. And yes, they are among my all-time favorites. Perhaps I'll just give you a quick synopsis of each of these best-known novels. Legend of the Condor Heroes. In an opening scene, the protagonist, Guo Jing, is an unborn child in his mother's womb. His father, along with a sworn brother, get framed as traitors and are murdered in a violent ambush. The child Guo Jing is then raised in Mongolia by the Mongolian Khan Temujin. Guo Jing then learns martial arts from the 7 freaks of Jiangnan. He is outwardly a slow-witted boy, but he has a kind and upright character. One day he meets Huang Yong, and she becomes the love of his life. During their adventures together, they come upon the 5 great masters, each of whom teaches them some formidable martial arts skills. Then Guo Jing encounters Yang Kang and discovers that Yang is actually the biological son of his father's sworn brother, but is now a Jurchen crown prince in the Jin Empire. Yang Kang, on discovering his own true identity, chooses to continue to serve the Jurchen king, and that leads to disastrous consequences. Return of the Condor Heroes. The story revolves around the leading couple Yang Guo and Xiao Longnu. Yang Guo is the orphaned son of Yang Kang from Legend of the Condor Heroes. Xiao Longnu is a mysterious maiden who lives in the ancient tomb. A series of events leads to their living together inside the ancient tomb for several years, during which Xiao Longnu becomes Yang Guo's martial arts master, and they develop romantic feelings for each other. As they venture into the outside world together, their forbidden love is to go through many tests. In that era, marriage between a master and a disciple is against the social code, so their love is forbidden love. During one fight with villains, Xiao Longnu gets poisoned and believes there's no cure. She then tells Yang Guo she has to leave him, but asks him to wait for her return. In her absence, the miserable Yang Guo wanders all over the land and somehow stumbles on a mystical giant eagle and a potent iron sword. His fate is to change utterly. The Heaven Sword and the Dragon Saber. In this novel, the protagonist is Zhang Wuji. His childhood is spent with his parents on a remote island, along with Se Sun, known as the golden-haired Lion King. Se Sun is a senior member of the Ming cult, and he has a tragic past. He loves the toddler Zhang Wuji and adopts him as his godson. When Zhang Wuji grows up, he gets entangled in the deep misunderstandings between the Ming cult and the 6 orthodox clans of martial arts, who despise the Ming cult. Meanwhile, all the clans jockey for leadership and have their eyes on the Heaven Sword and the Dragon Saber, which are a pair of unrivaled weapons. The plot thickens as the Ming cult members choose Zhang Wuji as their leader. Yeah, that's it for the 3 most popular novels.
Okay, thanks for that. Can you talk about the Jin Yong culture? What has been the impact of Jin Yong's Wuxia novels on the pop culture of Hong Kong and China, Taiwan, and other Chinese-speaking communities, including Vancouver, where you are, and here in Los Angeles? Across Greater China and beyond, there have been movie productions, serial dramas, manhua, and graphic novels, and other sorts of wuxia-themed material appearing in other kinds of media, including gaming.
The Jin Yong wuxia culture was given birth in Hong Kong, but it has spread far and wide to all Chinese-speaking communities worldwide. Before his passing in 2018, his collection of works sold more than 100 million copies worldwide, as you have mentioned. and that is not counting pirated copies. The entire collection was translated into Japanese, Korean, and many other Southeast Asian languages. And over the past decades, the whole collection has been adapted into TV series, movies, radio dramas, stage dramas, video games, comic books, donghua or anime, and more recently into web dramas. To celebrate his achievements, in 2017, the Hong Kong government opened to the public the Jin Yong Gallery in the Hong Kong Heritage Museum. More than 300 exhibits are displayed in the gallery. They feature the creative process of his novel writing, as well as the novel's deep influence on the pop culture of Hong Kong, mainland China, Taiwan, and Macau. Since the opening of the gallery, I've paid 2 separate visits there, and both times sent me down memory lane. Like a lot of Hong Kong and Chinese people, I read his novels as a child, and growing up, I watched many of the TV and movie adaptations of those novels. So it's not an overstatement to say that his novels have become a common language for Chinese speakers around the world.
You know, some of these Wuxia themed stories are already over 1,000 years old, but what is it about Jin Yong's writing, do you think, that are so beloved by so many Chinese people? What is it that he did that endeared himself to so many?
Well, I think most readers love his stories for one or more of these 4 reasons. Firstly, Jin Yong is super creative, not only in the invention of different fantastical martial arts techniques and in endowing them with fancy names, but also in translating the graceful movements of the techniques into beautiful prose. One can easily form pictures of those choreographs in one's head. Secondly, the many kinds of human relationships depicted in his novels, be it friendship, romance, familial love, sibling affection, or master-disciple attachment, are all very emotionally evocative. Thirdly, Jin Yong crafts 3-dimensional and flawed characters that readers can find relatable. Plus, his maze-like plots are quite addictive. Lastly, in his novels, he draws heavily on Chinese history, poetry, Buddhist and Taoist concepts, and traditional morals. Those are the things that Chinese readers can easily identify with. On the other hand, the fantasy part involves ideals of heroism that are realized by means of superhuman martial arts prowess, which give readers a welcome means of escape from everyday humdrum. And I think, those are the common reasons why his novels are so beloved.
Are all of Jin Yong's novels available in English? How widespread is his popularity outside of the Chinese-speaking world? I gave a cursory glance on Amazon and saw there's quite a bit on sale in translation. Aside from our mutual publisher, Mr. Graham Earnshaw, who translated Shu Jian En Chou Lu, The Book and the Sword, are there any renowned translators of Jin Yong into English?
Actually, between 1996 and 2005, English translations of 3 of his novels were published through university presses. But sadly, those did not find commercial success. Those 3 novels are Fox Volant of the Snowy Mountain, which is translated by Olivia Mock, The Deer and the Cauldron, which is translated by John Minford, and The Book and the Sword, translated by Graham Earnshaw. Up to the time of his passing, his brilliant works had remained largely obscure in the Anglosphere. That said, sometime prior to 2018, MacLehose Press, who is a mainstream publisher, picked up the 3 most popular novels that I described earlier for translation into English. The three standalone novels now form parts 1, 2, and 3 of the Condor Heroes trilogy, and each part is split into 4 volumes after translation. Between the year 2018 and 2021, all 4 volumes of Part 1, or Legend of the Condor Heroes, were published, and they are respectively titled A Hero Born, A Bond Undone, A Snake Lies in Waiting, and A Heart Divided. This year, Volume 1 of Part 2, or Return of the Condor Heroes, titled A Past Unearthed, has come out, with 3 more volumes in the pipeline. Part 3, or The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber, is expected to eventually come out in the future. And one key translator of these books is Gigi Chang, who is a Hong Kong native. I think it's still too early to pass a verdict on whether these newly published English versions have taken a foothold in the fantasy genre of the English book market. Time will tell, though.
So do you see any signs for optimism in terms of promotion of the wuxia genre to a Western or non-Chinese audience? I mean, surely with all the social media and video platforms available, this could possibly spread the word farther and wider than ever before. Yeah, I'm working with Rob Wynn and Ash Shui of Rising Tide Studios, who are designing, one of these types of video games.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is actually a lot of excitement over the upcoming all-new movie adaptation of Legend of the Condor Heroes, which is directed by the talented Cui Hak and starring web drama heartthrob Xiao Zhan. Xiao Zhan shot to fame for his leading role in the Xianxia web drama The Untamed, which came out in 2019. Xianxia is a subgenre of wuxia, as I mentioned earlier, usually very similar to wuxia, but with a slant on magic, reincarnation, and myths. The Untamed actually managed to wow an international audience. Since then, China-produced wuxia and xianxia web dramas have been extremely popular, both domestically and internationally. I myself have been hooked on many such dramas. It remains to be seen whether these recent developments will aid the promotion of wuxia fantasy fiction in the West.
So let's talk about your new book. But before we get to that, let's first take a look at your first 2 historical novels, Tales of Ming Courtesans and The Green Phoenix. So what history periods did those 2 cover?
Actually, The Green Phoenix is the first historical novel I wrote, and it came out in 2017. And Tales of Ming Courtesans came out in 2020 and was my second historical novel. Both novels are set in the late Ming to early Qing period. The Green Phoenix is about the life and times of Empress Dowager Xiaozhang, who was a Mongolian princess who married the first Qing emperor Hong Taiji, and she became the grandmother and mentor of the great Kangxi emperor. She used her wits to stabilize the early Qing Empire amidst internecine power struggles in court, and she also used her influence to restrain Regent Dorgan's repressive ways of treating the Han Chinese. The highlight of the novel is the forbidden romance between her and Regent Dorgan. Regent Dorgan is actually the younger half-brother of Hong Taiji. Tales of Ming Courtesans tells the tragic stories of 3 beautiful and talented courtesans from the late Ming era. One protagonist is the gifted female poet Liu Rushi, who had a cross-dressing habit, and the other 2 are Chen Yuanyuan and Li Xiangjun, both of whom were talented Kunqu opera singers. So that's those 2 books.
So now you just came out with a 2-book series, a duology, as they say in the biz. So the series is called The Sword Maiden from the Moon. And the first book came out, was it last year? And was called The Heavenly Sword.
Yeah.
And now, fresh out on Earnshaw Books, today's the day, isn't it? Book 2,
Yes.
The Earthly Blaze, has been released.
Yeah.
And, well, this was uncharted territory for you. Fantasy, historical fiction, Chinese, mythical folklore.
Correct.
Tell me about this new series, and if you can, a little more about this genre of Chinese fiction.
I wrote this Wuxia myth duology chiefly to honor Jin Yong's 100th birthday on March 10 this year. In my writing, I try to emulate his classic style of weaving fantasy around historical events and characters. The heroine, Tang Sire, in the novels, is a real-life woman rebel leader from the early Ming Dynasty. The backdrop of the duology is loosely based on the Prince of Yan's usurpation campaign against his nephew, the incumbent emperor Jianwen, and on the subsequent uprisings led by Tang Sire against the Yongle emperor. For the fantasy part, the special martial arts techniques featured in the novels were inspired by those found in Jin Yong's novel Demigods and Semi-Devils. Apart from the familiar wuxia tropes, readers can also expect to find immortals, gods, and goddesses in the cast and retold Chinese mythical tales. The idea of blending mythological elements in this wuxia story was spawned when I stumbled on a Qing fantasy novel while doing Ming history research. That novel is called The Unofficial History of the Female Immortal, or 女仙外史, and that is a supernatural story about Tang Sire. Also, the recent rise in popularity, both in China and worldwide, of web dramas adapted from wuxia and senxia novels written by contemporary Chinese novelists gave me another push. Many of those novels have now been translated into English and become bestsellers. In my duology, the folk legend of Chang'e, the moon goddess, prompted the whole reincarnation story of Tang Sire, the protagonist. In the novels, Chang'e, in the human form of a village girl, has a mission assigned by the deities to impede a tyrant on Earth. Another mystical tale I drew on is the folk tale of Neja's bitter wrangle with the green dragon of the East Sea, which is found in the Chinese mythology classic Investiture of the Gods, or Feng Shen Bang. This folktale has inspired a story within the main story. The caustic conflicts between Neja and the Green Dragon are retold with dramatic implications on Tang Sire's celestial mission. As you have already mentioned, The Heavenly Sword came out last year, and The Earthly Blaze is hot off the press. Yay! This duology, along with my two earlier historical novels, are all published by Earnshaw Books. And Earnshaw Books is a specialist in China-related stories, and it's my privilege to have worked with them over the years.
So tell me, what words of wisdom can you offer to anyone who, prior to this program, had never heard of Jin Yong or the wuxia genre, but whose interest has been piqued? What would be your professional recommendation for a good place to start?
For readers who had never heard of the wuxia genre, there are actually many media platforms that offer a good glimpse into this genre, like wuxia and senxia web dramas with English subtitles that are becoming well received in the West. My favorite wuxia senxia web dramas include The Untamed, Word of Honor, and Nirvana in Fire. Anyone who has watched the movies Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or House of Flying Daggers would have a pretty good idea of what wuxia films are about. If Western readers are interested in Jin Yong's novels, I think the easiest way would be to first watch a screen adaptation of the novel in question and then read the translated novel. And I would recommend the 2017 web drama adaptation of Legend of the Condor Heroes.
Good place to start. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it from all of us here. I'd like to thank once again Alice Poon for coming on to the CHP and helping your humble narrator out with this popular topic. Links to her webpage and Amazon page, and of course at Earnshaw Books, will be at the show notes. Her new book, The Earthly Blaze, is out now. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me, and very honored to be here on your esteemed podcast.
It's definitely a podcast. I don't know about the esteemed part.
Yes, the one and only Laszlo Montgomery.
Yeah, as Alice said, this is Laszlo Montgomery signing off from Southern California. Spring is here, and well, as Alexander Pope once said, hope springs eternal. Thanks for listening, and please consider coming back again next time for another exciting episode of the China History Podcast.
Ever notice your dog slowing down and having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add Rough Greens to your dog's food for 90 days and I guarantee you'll see changes that will amaze you. Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, inventor of Rough Greens here, and I invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients that you've added to their diet. And at 90 days, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you may even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch your dog a free Jumpstart trial bag today. Go to tryroughgreens.com. Use promo code TRYROUGH. That's TRYRUFF. Go to tryroughgreens.com. Use promo code TRYROUGH. You discover the shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot. We charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.